Welcome to Archery Talk 101 podcast, your guide to better archery skills. We'll bring you the latest tips, tricks, and expert advice, but that's not all. We'll also have interviews with top archers and industry professionals and reviews of the latest gear and equipment and much more. You're talking about taking your archery skills to the next level? A coach can definitely help you with that. I've been teaching archery for over 25 years. I'm offering a free 50-minute consultation call. For anybody that would like one, please fill out the form. I'll leave a link in the description so we can get to know you a little better and see if I can help you in your archery skills. I shoot fixed blades. Why should I switch to mechanicals? Hi, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm your host on Archery Talk 101. And we have somebody here that just might answer that question. They have Scott and Heath and Andy from Thorn Broadheads. Let's go ahead and have you introduce yourself. Let's start with Heath. Introduce yourself and tell us a little something about you.
Yeah, so I am Heath Smoak with Thorn Broadheads. I work here at the Thorn Broadheads HQ in Western North Carolina. It's a small town of Burnsville. I'm an avid archer. I'm a bow hunter at heart, and my life is centered around God and family foremost, but archery takes a great hold on my life. So that's definitely a forefront in everything I do.
And Scott, how about you? Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little something about you.
Yep, I'm Scott Nice. I am a national sales manager slash customer service, pretty much whatever we need to do to conduct daily business for Thorn Broadheads. Center Cross Archery is the parent company for Thorn Broadheads. We are a Christian-owned, Christian-based company. As Heath was stating, all of us are believers, and we are also avid archers. Obviously, I have a few more gray hairs than Heath has, which you can't hide. But I tell everybody, I'll be 49 years old here in a couple of months. And I got my first bow when I was 8, and I just never put it down. It's just archery's always been a part of my life. I worked as on the retail side as a bow tech for a number of years, and moved from that, 12 or 15 years ago now, into the manufacturing side. And I know this sounds very selfish of me, but honestly, I left the retail side because I like to hunt. And as a bow tech, my busiest time of year was October, November, when I wanted to be out hunting, and that's when everybody needed bow work done. And guys get a kick out of it. But honestly, that's one of the biggest reasons that I left the retail side. I wanted more time to hunt, and working in the manufacturing side, it affords to be able to do that. And I really like it. So.
Yeah, I know when I had my store, our busy time was, right before archery season started, and you're fletching arrows and all kinds of stuff, right before there. And yeah, that's a busy time when you don't get much chance to get out and go hunting.
Well, and the funny thing is, and I like to pick at guys a little bit, because I'm like, you guys do realize the season starts in our, I'm in Ohio. I work remotely. Heath and Andy are at the main headquarters. I work from my home office, and so here in Southern Ohio. And I always tell guys, our season starts about the same time every year, and it never fails. These guys are always last minute. Oh my gosh, my bow needs tuned, or and it's like, well, what happened to June, July, and August? I mean, we could have spread this out a little bit, but it never works that way.
Yeah, I know. I talked to a guy one time, had a store, and their hourly rate changed. The closer to hunting season, the higher it went. Yeah, so if you go in that week before, you're paying a lot for the labor. It's to get people to try and come in earlier and look at your stuff. And last thing you want is somebody come in. It's like, oh, can you look at my bow? Something's not working right. I'm going hunting tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Yeah. The kind of guy that drug it out from under their bed in their bow case and probably had shot it twice since last season.
Yeah. Or the guy that comes in and says, "Is it normal for your string to break when it's in the bow case?" He opens the bow case and here's exposed broadhead sitting in the bow case.
Yeah,
Like,
seriously.
yeah. You touch that string of the broadhead and it's going to snap.
Yeah.
Yep. You're done.
I keep my broadheads in there, but my broadheads are encased in my quiver, which is completely encased in foam. So there's no exposed cutting edges, and they'll still break over years.
Oh, sure.
So you just still got to do it. But so is Andy available to come on and introduce himself, or is he working?
He's all tied up, man. So it's just going to be me.
Oh, just you? Okay.
Yes, sir.
No, I just want to let him come on if he's had the time, because I heard him in the background before we started. So I guess we'll start with Heath. What made you start making broadheads?
Well, so Andy here, he's the man behind that. He's our CEO. He started it, and I guess the story can go back to roughly 2014 when the journey began. We started making prototypes and tried to make the Thorn Broadheads into what it is today. And then in 2017, we had a false launch, and then we officially hit the market 2018. And I was, being a small town kid in archery, shooting 3D, I'd met Andy, became acquainted with him, and we hit it off. And Andy wanted guys, surrounded himself with guys that shot and was avid about it. And so we stuck together, and, I was there from the start. So I've been there since the beginning, not the very beginning, but since the official beginning of Thorn. And ever since, I've got a passion for what we have, because I believe wholeheartedly in it. It's definitely changed the market. And to me, I don't think we've even tapped into the full potential of the overwhelming just wave that we can take over in the broadhead industry.
So what's different about your mechanical broadheads over all the other competition?
So our mechanicals are substantially different than anything that's out there on the market or ever has been on the market. It's got, if I can have one, I don't have one readily available, but the tip itself is what we call a rip tip. And there you go. Scott's holding one up for us. So if you notice the tip on that rift there, it plunges into the ferrule of the broadhead. And the blades are designed to completely close up inside the ferrule, and they're held in position with what we call a shear pin. And the shear pin is installed, you push it through, you cut off the excess. And as the broadhead is launched out of your bow, crossbow, whatever is firing an arrow at your animal, the tip hits, it activates. So what activates the tip is grabbing flesh and hide with the massive impact that would be out of, say 250 feet per second plus, the amount of force that is, it immediately exposes the blades, and the blades are deployed. So our claim to fame there we go. Andy's helped me out here. He heard me in need. So with that being said, this tip here, when it hits, it basically, just in a real fast action, when it hits, the blades are open. And, at 250 feet per second plus, like I was saying, that's almost instantaneous. And it's a cut-on contact broadhead. And because of this hidden blade technology, we are the most accurate mechanical on the market, bar none. And, essentially, it's just a field tip flying through the air until it hits the animal, and then you've got an 1 3/4 cut or a 2.2 inch cut slicing an animal wide open. So that to us that's what makes us stand out from anything else on the market.
Yeah, that's completely different from all the rest of them I've seen. They'll have where the blades are forward and they're opened up, or there's a little pin that pushes them, opens them up the side, and that looks like that would be a pretty good design.
Yeah,
Have
for
you
sure.
done like penetration tests, versus your mechanicals versus others, and I guess against fixed blades?
We have, but on the expandable side of things, we have stuck with comparing apples to apples instead of apples to
Right.
oranges. So
Right.
we don't want to compare our broadhead to a fixed. Of course, a fixed is going to penetrate better. They always do, because there's no energy being lost in the translation of closed broadhead to expanded broadhead. But yes, we have tested that, and honestly, we're right up there at the top. We've done a lot better than the mainstream. I'm not going to name names because we can't, but the mainstream mechanicals,
Right.
the top 10 sellers, we have tested against those and outperformed most of them in all the tests, if not all of them. There are a few that give us a run for our money, but I mean, that is what it is. We've tackled the biggest part, and that's making the most accurate and best functioning mechanical broadhead you can ask for.
Yeah, because the last thing you want is a mechanical to fail, so then it ends up just being a, field tip, and
Yeah.
and that doesn't do a very good job of killing the animals. You got to have them blades to cut, tissue and veins and stuff in there.
Yep. And it's a very reasonable concern. I mean, we get that question all the time, but this is our 5th year in business, and obviously we're still here. So it's a successful business, and it's a successful broadhead and I mean, just go take a look at our social media. I mean, the amount of success from customers, from television partners, YouTube partners, staffers, man, it's undeniably very useful and very effective. So that if there is that concern, all a man has to do is just take a look at our social, and it's nothing that we bought or paid for. It is tried and true success in the proof right there.
Yeah, because so many times you'll see some of these, and you can obviously tell that it's a paid endorsement. Just the way they word it, you can tell it's a paid endorsement. And then when you get out there, and that doesn't do anybody any good, because people see through it, and then it's like, okay, they're paying for endorsement. You don't have any confidence in their product, and when you get true, um, reviews on them. Now, I actually got your website up so I can kind of look at it, but you also have for crossbow and compound, so you can select, like on the Rift expandable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you do anything different between those? Because I know the crossbows have a whole lot more initial force behind them.
Yeah, so the Rift and the HPX is specified for crossbow, and the Rift is an either or. It's a compound or crossbow. The crossbow models have a black shear pin. It's a little bit thicker diameter of the shear pin. That way, in today's crossbows especially, the initial force from the launch of the crossbows was sharing the original design that we had 6 years ago. And 5-6 years ago, we didn't have crossbows shooting 400 feet per second. And then within a year into business, all of a sudden, companies like Raven were launching 400 feet per second crossbows. And that threw our original design just out of the water, because even all the other expandables out there on the market, they were just opening up in flight. They were getting inaccurate shots. They were missing targets at 20 feet. And, it was terrible. So the HPX came out shortly after this new age of high-speed crossbows, and HPX is an acronym for high performance crossbow. And it's got a titanium tip, and that titanium tip was substantially lighter than the stainless tip that's in our OG, which is this orange broadhead right here. It's the original design that we started with. And since that titanium tip is so much lighter, the force from the launch of the crossbow was not shearing the shear pin, because that tip would activate the blades, then the stainless. And then, when we went to the titanium, it held its position. It had the thicker.
Oh, looks like his internet cut out. Let's see if he comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing when things work good, they work good, and then internet
I
goes out, and
I know, I
we
know.
all had that. So
So to kind of expand a little bit on what Heath was saying, the difference between titanium and stainless is so if you take the exact same size stainless tip and the exact same size titanium tip, the titanium tip, excuse me, is lighter. So what happens when the crossbows hit a certain speed with that violent launch, you needed a lighter tip because the heavy tip would almost want to just sit there and the broadhead was almost like ramming into the tip. So making that switch to titanium, it lightened the tip up so that when you pull the trigger mech drops, releases the string, and you have that sudden inertia that, launch forward. The lighter tip didn't want to just kind of sit still. It moved with the broadhead, which took away from that deployment before impact.
yeah, it's basically, a mass at rest wants to stay at rest. And the heavier
Right.
the mass, the same amount of force on a heavy mass ain't going to make it move. We're on a
Right.
lighter force that makes it move. So,
Right.
you want that tip to move quicker.
Right.
So lighter is going to do it.
Lighter's going to do it. So that was kind of the formula. So even with the Rift, the crossbow models have the black shear pin, titanium tip, and also you get you'll see the silver ring at the bottom. That's actually an adapter ring, and what that does is that bridges the gap between the diameter of your crossbow bolt and the diameter of the body. It just makes for a smooth transition to keep the aerodynamics in check. So that's one of the other key parts of the crossbow model. And then, so for compounds, you'll have the orange shear pins. And then for crossbows, you have the black shear pins. So any pack of broadheads you look at and you see the black shear pins, that's the crossbow models. And then, of course, you always have your guys that 15 years ago, they had a bad experience with mechanical broadhead and they're just like, I'm done. Not ever going to use another mechanical. So we started in development of the Crown. And that was a broadhead that almost wasn't. We wanted something that was extremely accurate. Obviously, that's one of our trademarked phrases is field point accuracy, and we wanted that to carry on into our fixed blade broadhead. So it took a lot of engineering, it took a lot of time, and when we originally built this, all of the blades, there's 4 blades which make 8 cuts, they were all 1 inch, which is the bottom blade is 1 inch. It didn't fly good. So we had them from start to finish, all 4 were the same. And then also the distance between the blades is extremely important. So we had to play around with different diameters of ball bearings to get the blade distance right. And then we started going to different size blades and basically making a stair step system, helical stacked, up the body, basically what we ended up with was a broadhead that was field point accurate. It cut a hole in an animal that basically looks like you just run a 12 gauge shotgun slug through it. So the way it cuts, I mean, unless you have a massive chunk of something coming out of that animal, it's not plugging up. You know, it looks like a garden hose squirting out both sides. And, you know, accuracy, you know, we have guys tell us all the time with their high speed crossbows, they're shooting 120 yards with the Crown Broadhead, and they're holding less than a 2-inch group at 120 yards. They love them. You know, the high speed crossbow guys, you know, it's 100%, it's no fail. You know, now I tell guys all the time, if you hit it in the butt, you hit it in the guts, you're tracking. You know,
right.
you know, you're tracking. But if you put it where it needs to go, that right there is a highly lethal broadhead with, you know, a lung, a heart shot, you know, something that nature. You know, it is very short tracking jobs. And also the other thing with this is just by design, our conical tip is actually pretty sharp. This actually, for a youth or women or somebody that's just shooting a shorter draw, lower poundage, this is an extremely effective broadhead. Just by design, it doesn't take a ton of kinetic energy to shove this through an animal.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, there he is. He's back.
Yep.
Heath, you kind of blanked out on us.
Yeah, that happens up here.
Yeah. So, hey, we were just talking about the Crown. You kind of missed out on that, but we was going over the Crown about how accurate and, you know, it doesn't take a lot of kinetic energy to shove it through an animal. So somebody short draw, low poundage, you know, that's a great choice for them. The Western elk hunting guys have had awesome success with this broadhead. Obviously whitetails, black bear. You know, matter of fact, I had a customer reach out to me actually right after the Crown came out a couple of years ago. And he told me, he goes, "Hey man, I made a horrible shot on this black bear." And he goes, "I honestly believe if I wouldn't have had the Crown on there, I would have never found this bear." You know, he admitted it was a horrible bad shot, but he said as they were tracking it, they were literally finding chunks of internal parts of the bear dropping out on the ground, you know, and he found his bear. So yeah, very, very successful with the Crown as well.
Yeah. It takes a second seat on the top 5 broadheads. It is number 2 for us in our rankings as far as sales go. It's been very successful for sure.
Now, after you shoot them, do you have replacement blades or?
Yes.
How does that work?
So if you take a look at the Crown, you can notice that hole in the conical tip. That hole will actually fit what we call a tip tool. It's simply just a little piece of stainless. It's a stainless rod. You run it through it and you can loosen that tip up. And then as you loosen the tip up, the blades will come out one by one. And as I think Scott was mentioning, the ball bearings are in between each blade as they step down. And as the tip seats and is fully tightened, the blades will seat and perfectly and centered perfectly in the ferrule along the ridges of the ball bearings. So as you take the tip off, you take the blades out, you can pour the ball bearings out, clean them out, say if it's bloody, you know, and then once that's all said and done, we do have a rebuild kit for the Crown, and you can take, and you got to make sure you do it correctly. You're not going to get the correct flight because the bottom blade is 1 inch. This blade is 7/8 of an inch. And this is 1 inch, No, that is right. 1 inch, 7/8 and 3/4 and 5/8. That's how they step up.
Heath, do you have a backer card handy for the crown?
Yeah, give me just 1 second.
So, Roy, on the backer card, it actually gives we have a very good image of what the blade should look like stacked in the broadhead.
I'm sorry about that. I kind of came unprepared for this podcast. Me and Andy were running some crucial errands for the day, but yeah, this will explain it a lot easier. So you can tell right through here, this is essentially how it's set up. So you've got 1 inch, 7/8, 3/4, 5/8, and as you can see, the ball bearings are in between each one. That's a good little breakdown, excuse me, of what the crown would look like disassembled. And it's, it looks kind of intimidating to the novice, but once you do it 2 times, it's like butter. The rest of it falls into place. So, and what's great about this design is the way we done it is you can pour all 4 of the ball bearings in. You can kind of loosen the tip on just a little bit, and then you can put the blade in 1 blade at a time. And as you do that, the blades will push in between each ball bearing, pushing the ball bearings into place each time a blade is installed. And once that's done, cinch the tip down and you've got a freshly built crown fixed blade.
So, and to expand on that a little bit, each blade has an indentation top and bottom so that it seats perfectly on the ball bearing. And what that does is that keeps the blade centered in the body of the broadhead, and it also locks it in tight once you tighten the tip down, so that once the blades are in and everything, that tip is snugged down, they're 100% locked where they need to be locked, so that every broadhead's going to fly the same.
Yeah.
Now, are they flying any different than a field tip?
Nope.
So you just take your 100 grain field tip off, put 100 grain broadhead on, and same spot.
Yep.
Well,
yep.
Only if you want to waste that arrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because once that crown catches another shaft, it's pretty much done.
Right.
Yeah. And I do want to put the disclosure in there, like, hey, it's not going to fly right if your bow isn't tuned, and nothing will.
Right.
So if you're the guy that half butts put your compound bow set up together and it's not tuned when you go to the field, don't come at us saying that our broadheads didn't fly correctly. Go to your pro shop or blame yourself. I do want to put that disclaimer in there, I should say.
Well, and when you have regular field tips, your bow can be out of tune and still group good. But when you start putting blades up front,
that'll
then
change the whole dynamic.
Right. I know on mine, I've been shooting Muzzy for decades, and you have to line them up and tune them up and adjustment everything. And I use a little coned washer, kind of like switch on your crossbow one, and a little rubber O-ring, so I can tune them and I can adjust them. I can tune where the arrow hits, and they don't hit where my field tips, not even close. They're low and left, but that bow, I know if I shoot field tips on it, it's not going to hit in the same spot. So that bow I use for hunting, I know it shoots the broadheads good. I have another bow for shooting regular field tips. So that's something you have to learn, and it'd be nice to be able to practice with the field tips and then go to your broadhead and have the confidence it's going to hit in the same spot.
Yeah, so we've actually there's been some videos floating around on that where we actually take the same bow, same arrow, same style of arrow, field tip on one, crown on the other one, and shoot at the exact same target. And I mean, they're just right there. It's, but as Heath said, that is a bow that it's tuned. It's timed, it's spec'd out, it's shooting bullet holes. it's the bow's tuned. There's no issues that way. And it will produce very accurate results, field tip versus the crown, or for that matter, the mechanicals.
Yep. So if you was to take one of our mechanicals, a field tip, and a crown, and shoot a 3-arrow group at 50 yards, if you're a good enough shot, I about guarantee you're going to have to refletch one of those.
Yeah,
for sure.
So Roy, that's the fun thing about it, because in my quiver, I've got all kind of broadheads. I've got an OG, I've got Rift, I've got an XV, a crown. And honestly, I can pull any one of those arrows out at any time. And it doesn't matter if it's a 20-yard shot or a 70-yard shot. I'm 100%. I know it's going to hit where I put the pin. And that's the beauty of the Thorn Broadhead Thorn system, is that you have that ability to do that. You don't have to have every single broadhead in the quiver exactly the same. You can just reach in, grab an arrow, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Well, just so that we have somebody in the group, Aaron said I did it at 65 and had to throw an arrow away.
Yeah.
I mean, that crown is nasty. If you get near another shaft, you're
going to end up with carbon in your hand. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's, like everything that's new. I know when the first mechanicals come out, they made a big old hole, but didn't penetrate, and
right.
And, that they've gotten a lot better since then. Now,
well,
what would you say would be the minimum draw weight for compound to shoot one of the mechanicals?
50 pounds. 55 pounds is a very conservative number. That's what we've tested too. And of course, that always depends on your draw length as well. If you're shooting a 26-inch draw length and shooting 55 pounds, I would probably steer towards the crown.
100%.
But, the expandables are very effective from 55 pounds. If you're shooting a 28.5 and higher, 27.5 and higher at 55 pounds, and you're shooting correct spine to match with that, don't be afraid of shooting the OG. It'll do great.
Yeah, so that opens up a whole nother can of worms.
Seriously.
When you get into arrow shafts, and a lot of guys, they call it arrow spline, SPLINE, and it is not. It is SPINE. It is arrow spine. Spine and weight. There's a lot of trains of thought on that. A lot of things floating around on the internet. And it's like anything else in this world. You've got the extreme either direction. And really what guys need to focus on is somewhere in the middle. Finding myself personally, having done this for many, many years. And as you can see behind me, I've killed quite a few critters. That's just a handful. I like, I shoot 72 pounds at a 30-inch draw, and I typically like to run a 460 to 480 grain arrow, and have been very successful with that. I have shot much heavier, just playing around with it. Yeah, I get penetration, but I lose so much on distance. I've killed critters at quite a distance with a bow, and I like to find that mid-range. In my opinion, a light arrow only has one place, and that's on a 3D course.
Yeah.
Shooting foam. And there's guys that argue that till they die. And, that's fine. You go track that deer or that elk or that bear for 17 miles, burn the leather off your boots. I don't care. It ain't my boots. But for me personally, I like that mid range. I like that 465 to 485 range. I feel that for energy, distance, and penetration, at my draw length, at my poundage, that has been extremely successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I try to stick in the 450 grain. That's what I've been running for the last 2 years. I'm right there pretty close to Scott. I'm a 30.5-inch draw. I'm drawing actual 72.5 pounds. I blow through everything I shoot with a 450 grain arrow, and that's a 300 spine. So, I mean, it's very effective.
Yeah, I know my first year was 52 pounds, and I had a full length aluminum arrow with 125 grain broadhead on it. And I was 20 feet up in the tree, and it was 40 yards away, and that arrow almost went clean through.
Yep.
Yeah.
A heavy, slow arrow, and it didn't stop. I kind of equate it, you run into a brick wall with a Mack truck or Volkswagen. Which would you rather have?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So going the way is kind of nice, but
and you have to understand too that the technology of the bows has come a long way. When you look at the cam systems, when you look at the overall speed of the bows, back when I was a kid, and certainly not calling you out for age, Roy, but when you were younger, them little round wheels were not real efficient. I mean, you were basically it was pretty much a limb driven bow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the limbs were the workhorse. And now when you look at a bow, the advancement in technology and engineering, the cams and the limbs, the cams are a more integral part of the launch system than what they used to be. So the energy is different. And I mean that in a way that upon release, it's kind of hard to, without getting too technical, but it seems like you've got more energy throughout the arrow flight and travel due to the mechanics and the engineering of the systems today. So you don't necessarily, like back in the old days, running the old Easton aluminum shafts, you needed a big heavy arrow. I mean, you weren't really going to shoot that far anyways. So,
no.
I mean, if you cut down an old poplar tree in the backyard and shoot it, whatever you could get heavy to push through. But with today's equipment, that's certainly not the case. I personally know guys that have shot deer at well over 100 yards with a compound bow, and that arrow passed clear through.
Mm-hmm.
I've shot them at near 80 yards, or give or take a couple yards, a little over, a little under, that have had clean pass throughs. And I was nowhere near the heaviness of those old aluminum shafts. We're talking a 465 grain shaft with 100 grain broadhead. And now, obviously, that's not hitting the shoulder. That's staying just behind the shoulder, clipping the heart and through the lungs. That's a very, very doable scenario.
Yeah, but that's a whole can of worms of like
it is, yeah.
That the dynamic of an arrow past like 50 yards in some setups completely changes as what it was at 10 feet, But like we said, that's a can of worms for another podcast.
Yeah, we don't want to get into that. So,
well, it sounds like you're ready to go fishing. All these cans of worms were opening up.
I know. Yeah, we could fish for about a week.
Yeah.
But these are all questions that people are going to have, and now let's get them answered. If we can think of a question that they have, and I know I started out, the bows when I started, they didn't have no wheels. It was a stick with a string. You're flicking another stick.
Mm-hmm.
That's archery. That's still archery. It's just they kind of advanced. I've been shooting for probably 10 years for the first compound came out. They didn't come out until the 70s, and I don't know, bows have advanced quite a bit. There's a lot of them, we had overdraws to get the speed out of them, and everything else. Those can be dangerous because the tip of the arrow is behind your hand.
Right.
Anything comes off, it's through your hand, and
Well,
that's why I always set them up so that the arrow was in front of your hand. I just seen a guy one time come in and say, he says the arrow fell off the breast. He didn't notice it until he pulled the trigger. On his hand between his index finger and thumb on that meaty part back there. There is a three-sided scar because the arrow went through his hand.
Yeah, but you got to figure, Roy, back in the early 80s, we thought lawn darts was a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I had a set of them.
What could possibly be wrong with throwing a pointed object up in the air and letting it come down?
Yeah, we throw them all the time. No big deal. Nobody got hurt because we stayed out of the way of them. We knew they hurt.
Sure.
And nowadays, everybody wants to be safe and put anything at risk. And it's completely different. But anyway, so you're looking at 55 pounds or so, 52, 55 pounds for a minimum for that, it's your 28 or better draw length. I know when I had my store, I used to tell them, if you're not shooting at least 60 pounds, you don't want to shoot a mechanical. It just takes too much force out of it. And, they weren't, quite as good a design as these. And some of them, they'd have trouble if the blades would get bent a little bit and then they wouldn't open or wouldn't close. And, a lot of problems with it. Just like when the first carbon arrows come out, I wouldn't shoot one of those for hunting. You couldn't pay me enough money, because what happens if they broke, they splintered. And now, the new carbons now, they don't splinter, they just break cleanly. And now it's okay. But, before I didn't want to take a chance of having an arrow break inside the animal and have all these carbon fibers in the meat, because then that's like, okay, you got to throw it away because you can't take a chance because those carbon fibers, if you eat them, they're going to tear up everything on the way. So I just refused to, and I shot aluminums for, pretty much until I bought my store in 2001. That's when I switched to carbons. I've been shooting aluminum. So then I shot the XX78s. I always figured, okay, I'm going to get the straightest shaft I can. And the XX78s were 0015 straightness. And it seems like every year I'd get a new set of arrows and my group would just tighten way up. Now I'm just barely able to keep them into the white on the single spot. Now I get a new set of arrows. Now they're back all on the X-ring. And, not everyone, of course, I wasn't quite that good, but every year. And then when you think about it, how would you break a piece of aluminum if you had aluminum, you wanted to break it and didn't have any tools? Just start flexing it. Flex it, and eventually it breaks. And if anybody's seen slow motion of an arrow in flight, they flex it all the time. So it makes sense that, over a year of shooting them, they would do that. And then you're banging into them. And, I used to bust nocks all the time. And then I quit shooting single spots because I got tired of busting nocks.
Well, even with carbon arrows, you can, and I'm glad you brought that up because you can 100% shoot the spine out of an arrow. And, guys that, I don't need to buy new arrows. Case in point, I've got a buddy of mine that I literally went and took his arrows and broke them and threw them away because he just I don't need new ones. And I'm like, but you've been shooting these for how many years? Well, when we got him some new arrows, he goes, oh my God, I'm shooting so much better. I'm like, yeah, I've been telling you need to replace these because when you fire that thing and you start pounding it into a target and you're taking that thing and putting that abrupt stop to it every time. And like you said, they do flex in flight. You 100% shoot the spine out of them. And most of us, we hit the woods every year with new arrows and especially ones that have been shot much. Now if I have some that I haven't shot at all, then I certainly don't mind using those. But if I've shot them much, I 100% those won't go back to the woods with me.
Well, and I figure I want the newest, best arrows. That's why I always bought a new set of arrows every year before hunting season. And I
Yep.
would sight them in and shoot them. And, good examples. Like I had a buddy of mine that was shooting his arrows and they were, I don't know, 3,000s or something like that. And he's grouping, decently grouped. I gave him a set of my arrows and groups were about half as big
Yep.
because the straightness. The only difference was I had a 1,000 straightness and he had a 3.
Hmm.
And I did the same thing when I had, and that all affects the way your broadheads fly as well.
Right.
Because,
Mhm.
okay, why am I not grouping? Well, I've got a 6,000 straight in the shaft because I want to spend the cheapest arrows I can to put my
Yeah.
broadheads on them. Why can't I group? Well, you can't group the field tips either. I had, when I had my store as a PSE dealer, and they come out with it called their hunter shaft, which is 7,000s. I don't know why they call it a hunter because I won't hunt with them. And
Right.
so, okay, I'm shooting them and see what kind of group, and I can keep them all in the white on the single spot. But my comp pros, I didn't have a problem. It's like, okay, I might miss the X ring a couple of times, so you're
Yep.
grouping in the X ring or grouping in the 5 ring. So what's the difference? The only difference is the straightness of the shaft. And that kind of proved that whole point, right there is a proof. You shoot your cheap arrows. Cheap arrows are for flinging them at pigeons in the barn or something. Because you're going to hit stuff and wreck them. So who cares? You go to Walmart, buy their cheap piece of crap arrows, and you're going to shoot them, at the sparrows in the barn. Keep them
Hmm.
out of the barn. That's what those are good for, not for hunting.
Yep.
Because pretty much there you're shooting at a beam and you're either going to hit the bird or you're going to destroy your arrow. One of the two.
Yep.
and,
Yep.
and that's where you get your cheap ones. That's what they're for. They're not for hunting. Hunting, you got to have
Well,
the best you can.
I like to watch racing, and these guys win a race by 100th of a second.
Right.
So you do a little something to your car to make it just a tick faster to win the race. Well, in archery, my opinion, if I have to feel like that I've done everything I can do, the best accessories, the best broadhead, the best arrows. Because to me, if you're going to kill something, I want to kill it quick, clean, ethical. And I feel that I have to give it my best effort to do that.
Right.
And that means I'm not going to halfway do something. When I leave the house and I load my stuff up and I'm heading out to hunt, I want to know that I've done my part. I've practiced with my bow. I know it's going to hit where I'm aiming and it's going to perform so that I don't wound an aim.
It's his turn for the internet to go out.
Yep. I guess Scott's go. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, you're back.
Yep. So, that's my thing. I just want to know that I've done my part, that I've got the best equipment, the best setup to make a good, quick, clean kill.
Right.
Yep.
Well, when you look at, what's the cost? The cost of your broadhead, they're going to anywhere from $15 to $30 a piece, right in that range. So do I want to take a chance of making a bad shot, not only losing the arrow, but losing the animal because I don't want to spend an extra $5 on an arrow?
Mm-hmm.
It's return. Let's get, you're spending more for the broadhead than you are for the shaft anyway. Even the expensive ones, they're what, $10, $15 a piece for them. Been a while since I bought them because when I closed my store, I kept all my arrows.
Yeah.
So I have several dozen of them, and they're all the
Right.
Comp Pro 300s. The BSC Compo 300s is what I shoot for spine, and then the 200s I kept for my kids, and everything else I got rid of. Because
Yeah.
I'm not going to shoot them. I'm only going to shoot the Comp Pros, and it's sometimes kind of hard to understand. When you're trying to talk to somebody, it's like why they need the higher grade ones. And some your budget just won't allow you.
Yeah.
I need new arrows. Better to get the 3,000s than get nothing. Shoot old worn
Well,
out ones.
And my answer to that is certainly I'm not advocating for people to spend money they don't have, but don't shoot further than you can accurately either.
Right.
That's the and that's where all that kind of comes into play. I'm not saying you have to have a $3,000 setup in your compound or a $2,000 crossbow, but know your limitations. There's been a ton of deer killed with a $500 package crossbow from the local pro shop, but just know what your limitations are for that equipment and stay in it.
Right. When you look at it, it's like, okay, at 20 yards, I have a 6-inch group. Say, okay, let's say you haven't come to me and I haven't taught you how to shoot correctly. So, little plug, because I've been an archery coach since '95. But anyway,
sure.
You're shooting it at, let's just say you can keep them in the white ring. So that's what, 3-inch diameter. I'm just trying to
yes.
So you have a 3-inch diameter that you can keep them in. But your kill zone on a deer is roughly what, 6? Right there, by the time you take the longs and stuff, So you're already halfway there. Now you shoot at 20 yards. Where are you at? Now go shoot at 15 yards. Where are you at? Shoot at 25 yards. Shoot at 30 yards. And where are you dropping into? Now you can't even keep within the kill zone. So now then that's not your normal range. And then how good are you judging yardage?
Right.
If you're off by 5 yards, that can make a difference between a good kill shot and tracking forever. Or just a wounded deer that dies 2 days later.
Exactly.
So that's like what you were saying. You got to know what your limitation is. And I always like going to 3D shoots where they have the bionic deer, a steel plate with the vitals cut out. Here's the vitals. And when I was down at PSC, down for dealer school, they was telling me a story. They had this group of guys and some ladies down there, and they had this one out there, and it went to the first, and it says, okay, now you pick the distance that you think you can kill that animal at. And not to pick on guys, but the guys, I can do this at 50 yards. Smack. Finally, it's like, okay, well, I can do it this. And finally, one of the ladies, I guess, gonna like, I'm gonna do this at 20 yards. Nailed it. So you need to know what your skills are. And guys will say, I'm not going to shoot them because I might wreck my arrow. But yet they'll shoot at a buck the same distance and take a chance because it's a buck, it's an animal. They're not going to lose the arrow. They'll take a shot at this animal at this range beyond their ability.
Yep.
And take a chance of wounding it and then nobody getting it.
Yep.
So that's all like you said, know what your skill is. Know your equipment.
when you got a guy like Heath and that deer steps out at 50, 55 yards, I'd be like, cameras on, kill it, dude. But the honest truth is, yes, there are guys out there with that capability, but there's also a larger group of guys that don't have that capability, as you said. And I think that's where it comes down to, just got to be honest with yourself. Right. Let that deer walk, or deer, bear, whatever, let it walk, and go after it another time. And I think that if more people would do that, because the first thing that's going to happen, they're going to make a crappy shot because they were outside of their limitation. It's going to be everybody's fault but theirs. It was the biggest deer they've ever seen in their life, and it's your fault they didn't get it. The broadhead didn't work. Yeah. There's got to be some accountability.
Right.
It's.
Yeah, I know. One time at the archery club I belonged to, one time they had a broadhead sight-in day. So that you can shoot your broadheads. Normally, we don't allow broadheads at the range because they just tear up targets. And we had special broadhead targets to shoot into. Just get guys, a chance, and ladies, a chance to shoot the broadheads and check their equipment. So we had a target out at 10 yards. We was amazed at how many couldn't even hit that target with the broadheads.
Yep.
They couldn't hit it. They're like, this is a 10-yard shot. Now, not saying I've never missed, because I've missed. We've all missed. I drove one time, shot at a deer. This should have been a dead deer, and I completely missed it. I forgot to aim. I just pulled up and pointed in the direction and shot. Forgot to aim. And the worried part was like, okay, what's going on? Why did I miss? Because I seen it completely miss the deer. It just kind of trotted it off. Got a field tip out, picked out a leaf, hit the leaf. It's like, I forgot to aim. Yeah, we all do that.
Things happen. And to me, that's another reason why, even when you know what you're doing, things can happen. So you really have to know your limitations.
Right.
Your effective range.
What is your effective range? And, one way to do that is like put a bludgeon on, and then just walking through a field where you got stumps. It's like, okay, there's a stump, shoot it, because, they won't stick in the ground, and they kind of don't like to bury in the grass. But just pick, okay, I think this is 27 yards. Shoot, you hit it. Okay, good. Or no, I was over. And like, okay, I'm off, and then, if you have, no, with rangefinders, I just got a rangefinder last year.
Okay.
I'm 67. I just got a rangefinder last year. I never use it. I was always, got used to judging yardage. That's why I like going 3Ds, because it helps me develop the skill to judge yardage. And then I shoot spots, develop my skill of making sure I can hit what I'm aiming at. But yeah, it's
well, you're talking to a one-eyed guy here. I always have a rangefinder because yardage is not my friend. It is not my friend. I know I used to shoot 3D a lot, and I could be going along on a course and just absolutely killing it, and be 10 up, and then all of a sudden there'd be a ripple in the terrain, and I've completely missed target. Misjudged the yardage. Well, there goes your 10, and you're kind of back to a clean slate. So, when this old one-eyed guy hits the woods, I got a rangefinder. It's right around my neck and easy to get. Yeah.
And for hunting, I think it's a good idea if you're not, real good at judging yardage, because if you know the range, then you don't have to worry about, okay, what pen do I use? I have a mysterious ghost in the background.
I see that. So, but there again, that goes back to knowing your limitation. I know mine. I know mine. I know that, yardage is not my friend. So, and I have 2 rangefinders. I always be sure I've got one in my pack, and when I leave the house, there's one around my neck and in a pocket, to make sure that I have that, so that, if I range it, I know the range, I set the sight, then if something happens, it's all me.
Right. I've taken, the rope I used to carry with me was 10 feet long. So I knew, I could go out. Okay, here's 10 feet. I'd hook it on the tree, the marker, there's 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, so there's my 10 yards. And then go out, I think maybe it was 30 feet long. I forget how long it was, but I could measure from my tree stand, especially when you're in an open field. And then I'd put a marker out there that say, okay, this is 20 yards. I know where this is at. And then I can go from there. With fixed pins, you kind of have the idea. It's like, okay, once you shoot them enough, you'll know that, okay, if I can only get these 2 pins on there, I know it's this range and then this range. And, I get all 3 in the kill zone. I know it doesn't matter which one I use,
Right.
So you can do that. But
I like the single pin adjustable. Most of the time, I'm not doing spot and stalk. I'm in a blind or in a tree stand. The first thing I do when I get in the stand is I get the rangefinder out and I'm ranging, a stump, a log, a tree, whatever, to know my yardages. And then, I leave the sight unlocked where I can make a quick yardage adjustment and then get on it.
Yeah.
So,
So let's get back to the broadheads. We kind of get, sidetracked here. What
Sure.
would you say to somebody that is still leery of shooting a mechanical broadhead?
Heath?
That's tricky. I mean, you got to be careful not to step on toes, but the truth of the matter is technology has came a long way. Yeah, there's always a chance of failure, but like we have always said, and not that it's a condonement that our product doesn't work or something, but if you put the arrow where it's supposed to go, it's going to kill. So it goes back to what we just got off on that tangent of being confident in your equipment. If you're confident in your equipment as far as your shootability and your aiming and your where that arrow is going to hit, that will translate over into your gear. And we produce a product that is reliable. And yeah, there's other products that work. We know that. That's not what we're here for, is to say that they don't work. They do work. And if you're still leery of shooting a mechanical, I mean, you're about 20 years too late. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter, because technologies came far enough. Compound bows are efficient enough. When you pair everything together and you make the perfect recipe of a setup, and you put a wide cutting, accurate mechanical on the end of a well-driven arrow, man, you can't ask for anything better. I mean, the devastation is almost instantaneous, and the blood trails are crazy. And yeah, I mean, you can get the same kind of results from a fixed blade, but there are so many benefits from a mechanical that outweigh the fixed blade, not in the sense of no fail, but in the sense of, it's just so much more devastating, so much more accurate, and it can save your butt if you do make a bad shot. For the most part, if you make a bad shot with a 1-inch fixed blade, man, it's up in the air whether or not you got it. But if you make a bad shot with a wide cutting, like a 2.2 or Rift, you make a far back shot with that, man, it's probably going to cut it so bad it's not going to go 50 yards, depending on the animal that you've shot. So it's almost one of those things that there's only so much convincing you can do to someone that has set in their mind that it's not for them. It's just go out and try it. Just, if you're willing to take the leap of faith, go out and try it. And if you try our product, I guarantee you'll be happy. I guarantee it.
Well, and one other thing too is, the fixed blades, just slower bows, they fly great. And then you get a little bit faster, and then the faster you get, the harder it is to tune. Next thing you know, they're flying so fast that you're spending more time trying to get your arrows to group than you are anything else. And at that point, these fast bows, it's hard to get your broadheads to group.
Yeah.
I know my hunting bow back in 2001 was rated 320 feet per second. And it takes a little bit to get them tuned, and you start getting the faster bows yet. And, you might get to a point where the time spent trying to tuning them isn't worth the time it takes to just, get like one of your broadheads, the Thorn Broadhead, and, be done. There's no trying to tune the broadhead to your arrow to make it fly right.
Yeah. We've taken a step out of a decades old long process. We've tried to eliminate that final step. You still need to make sure your bow is tuned, but the broadhead tuning aspect of things, that's not necessary for us. It's taken a step out of a process that we've done for decades.
Right. Well, and if you're still not confident, sacrifice one of your broadheads and shoot it and see what it does. And then, okay, now that's your practice one. It's already got dull blades on it. You don't care because it's your practice blade, and just keep practicing with them. And, now you have your confidence that you're going to hit it with that one. That's just something that you can do if you don't have confidence in the blade yet, because you haven't shot it. You don't have proof, and you hate to try it on a deer. Sacrifice one. That's not much of an expense. For the confidence, okay, this does hit exactly like my field tips. So I can practice, and I know the broadheads are going to hit, so you're spending $15-20 for a broadhead. That's cheap compared to the hours you could spend, or the lack of confidence in yourself, because then that shows up how you shoot.
Yep. And what's great about our hidden blade technology mechanicals is it comes standard with a yellow practice clip. I mean, you just pop it in between the ferrule and the fatter part of the rip tip, and man, you've got a practice head right there. You're practicing with exactly what you can take to the woods, and that confidence is at the utmost, because then exactly, and you could pop that practice clip off and you can use that exact broadhead to take the big buck that you've been chasing all fall, and that's a huge benefit of our design. And other companies have come along with, set screw ideas and stuff, and that's phenomenal, but it's this thing now of knowing that your equipment is what you expect it to be, and that's what our product can do for you as well.
Well, that's good. It comes with a way to use it as a practice. That clip in there it's perfect.
Yep.
Into a foam target only.
Yeah, that is key.
Bag.
Yep.
Yeah. No
the
bag
bags.
Targets.
Broadheads and bags don't work together very well.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised at how many people. Yeah.
Yeah. Scott can tell you. There's a lot of those guys,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something to know. Got to shoot into the foam ones only.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I shoot broadheads into foam targets. I don't shoot broadheads into the bag targets.
No, we never have. Like, when did that become a thing?
Yeah. I don't know any broadhead company that says, "Hey, shoot our broadhead into a bag target."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no. But it has happened more often than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, as far as toughness, I still haven't switched from my muzzies because my bow's set up to shoot them, and I just haven't changed. But one day I was practicing when I had my store and shooting my broadhead target, and I missed it and stuck it into a concrete block. Didn't hurt the broadhead at all. So, not that I recommend shooting any blade into a concrete block. How are yours when they do hit hard objects? How do they stand up to, not necessarily shooting a concrete block, but when you hit, like one of the real tough bones?
Oh, it's right up there with the best of them, and it's a mechanical. So there's gaps. There is gaps in the strength and integrity. It's not like a one piece, annihilator fixed blade broadhead, or kind of like the Montex used to be. It's definitely not like that by no means, but it is a very tough broadhead, and the blades are thickest on the market. It's a butcher style blade that has a thickness thicker than competitor blades. And the ferrule itself is a 70-75 aircraft grade aluminum. So, it's as rigid as it can come. And with the titanium tips in some of our models, that's almost indestructible. And then the stainless steel that we use in the standards is right up there at the top as well. So when you pair all those components together and you put it in a one piece, it's a pretty rugged design. And as far as the bone goes, it's a long blade that is at full expansion. You're going to hit bone, so you might have a nick in the blade, but it's nothing more than taking a file to it, knocking it back down, sharpening it back up. And we have a broadhead sharpener that Scott is showing us there. We have that on the market now that you can actually sharpen those blades and put it back to a razor's edge like before. So,
yep.
It's a rugged design, man. And I'll be honest with you, my favorite, and I shoot a different design. It's a glue-in design for the 166 diameter arrows, but it's essentially the same thing as the OG. And that OG with the shorter diameter cut and the stainless steel tip, man, it is just a tank of a broadhead, because there's less that can go wrong with wider cut. There's more that can get damaged on the blade, because the longer something is, the more flexible it is, blah, blah, blah. But it's a powerhouse of a little broadhead.
Yeah, that's that's always a question that some people have, is how durable is it to standing up to stuff that, that's a little bit harder. If you get that perfect shot, you miss all the bones and everything. And, just going through the ribs, the the fixed blade one, the what is that, the crown, that's got, pretty small, that can slide through. And, I just, is when, okay, what happens when this broadhead hits a rib directly dead on, and that's kind of where, that's more likely what you're going to hit, and just go right through them. And
yeah, for a whitetail, there is definitely no concerns of losing any kind of durability. When you get up in the bigger game, it's not to say that the broadhead loses its durability, but when you're trying to bust bones that are the size of your thumb, that no matter what you're shooting, that can be tough. So,
right.
But our broadheads can withhold to it. We've got guys that have shot big game. We've got Tim Gillingham that we've been partnered with for a couple of years. He's been shooting caribou, elk. I mean, some of the biggest game you can ask and put our broadheads through, and he's done it with no problem. So, the extensive testing throughout 5-6 years has proved to us, not only to the customers, but to us and our own mindset, we have a product that is outright just tough, man. And it's not, we didn't want to put together a cheap piece of crap and then try to upsell it and, like everybody else does.
Well, and to be honest, in 5 years, I've only destroyed one broadhead shooting an animal. I shot a deer in West Virginia, and I was up in a tree stand. The arrow went through the deer into the ground and it hit a big chunk of granite or marble, big chunk of rock, and I mean, I knew when it hit, but yeah, that broadhead's no good.
Yeah.
But, honestly, I was 20 feet up, the deer was 20 yards out, 465 grain arrow at 72 pounds at a 30-inch draw. What do you think's going to happen? That is, but I can say with all sincerity and honesty, that's the only broadhead that I was not able to reuse.
Yep. I can second that. Yep. And I'll say this, we're not hunting concrete bricks.
Right.
Right. I mean, obviously through our testing, because when we're testing stuff, we absolutely torture them. And we can them up, but as far as, which we do that on purpose to see how far we can go. But in a general hunting situation, of all the stuff I've killed in the last 5 years, I legit have only tore up one broadhead that could not be reused.
And that's because you hit a rock.
Yeah, a big rock. Yeah. Hard. Big rock, hard. Yeah.
That's not. Most of them aren't going to stand up to that kind of a thing because you're not even going to chip it.
Yeah.
Right.
A concrete block is still not as dense as a rock.
Right. And I don't know if you've been to West Virginia much, but it right below the dirt, man, there's a big rock hiding everywhere, in the mountains. So it, but legitimately, that's the only one I've ever damaged in an actual hunting situation. Yeah.
And that says a lot, for the broadheads when you can take in, shoot all kinds of different animals, from whitetail to caribou to elk. And I don't know if anybody shot any moose with it or not yet, but
I think we have one guy that I know of that shot a moose in Canada. Yeah. And he shot it with, I want to say the OG, and phenomenal cut.
They're a big animal.
Yeah.
So I went to Canada one time and got a moose, and man, it's amazing. Their ears are the size of your feet.
They're big.
Yeah. They're a big animal and mean, and they don't like anybody coming their territory during the rut.
No. I haven't had the privilege of harvesting a moose. I actually saw one the day after season went out, close enough that I could have killed it, but it was neat. I mean, I was like really close to this thing, and it was amazing at just how large they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. When you stand up and their belly is about your shoulder height, or depending how tall you are, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they sure look like really nice broadhead, and obviously one of the guys in the group commented that he's used them, and
Yeah.
it's been really great talking with you guys here on this, and I learned a lot, and I'm sure anybody watching this didn't know about your broadhead's going to learn. If they wanted to get a hold of you, my phone, there we go. name unavailable. Mostly times when they call, it's a scam call, so I just hit answer and hang up.
Yeah. So basically on our website, my phone number, my email, Heath's number and email is on there, Andy's. We are still one of the few companies that if you call one of those numbers, you're actually going to get a live human, and you're going to get somebody that is not just reading from a sheet or off a computer screen. You're going to get somebody that can actually assist you, answer technical questions with accuracy, and get you taken care of.
Well, and for those that are lucky to get to watch the podcast, here's your website, and I clicked on contact us and go down here, and here's Andy's information, Roy Stoffers, Scott, your information, your phone number, your email. Down here, Heath, here's your information, and Aaron, all your information's right here. Phone numbers, emails, and everything. So, that's the nice thing about the smaller companies like this is you can, last times you get in there, you actually talk to the people at there, and or in big companies, you talk to the receptionist, and then you talk to somebody else, and then you never get to talk to the owners, and that's why it's nice when you can do that.
Yeah, and through the fall when seasons are in full swing, I've gotten phone calls Saturday, Sunday, and the guys are just kind of blown away that somebody would actually answer the phone. Now we can't always do that, but
right.
If I'm able, or whoever, Andy, Heath, whatever, we'll answer the phone, and we want everybody to have a good experience. This is not just something we do. This is something that we enjoy. It's who we are. We have a very, very tight-knit, good group of guys. And even though we all don't work in the same building, something I've always felt that was neat is we all talk so much that when we are together at the warehouse.
Oh, his internet's going out.
Right in the middle of a heartfelt speech.
Right.
How unfortunate.
All the time. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, you cut out right in the middle of your speech. You kind of, your video froze and audio froze.
Oh, I was just saying, we all talk so much that, we don't all work in the same building, but it's like when we do get together, you walk in the door and it's just like, hey, what's up? You were just there yesterday and the day before, but we all talk so much that even when we are together at the warehouse, the main office, it's like it's not a big deal because we talk so much anyways that it's like, like you literally just walk in the door like, sup, like I just saw Heath yesterday,
Yeah. And I say nuts, you can always do the video like we're doing here on the Zoom call where you can actually see each other, and much better than a phone call because I think it's more personal, not as much as if we were actually sitting in a room together. That would be the ultimate way to do it is, have a studio where we all meet together, but we're in 3 different states.
Exactly.
I'm here in Nebraska, and it's like, who wants to drive that far when we can just get together like this,
right?
And talk and get to know each other, and that's nice about this. It's kind of a personal rather than going to the big companies. When you find a small company that has a good product, that's as good, if not better than anything else out there, let's support them. And, that's why I was excited to learn that you guys, are going to come on the podcast. And I know,
Yeah.
I know our listeners are going to enjoy the information they're getting from this. And so if they want to contact you, just go out to your thornbroadheads.com and there's contact information, and get a hold of whoever you want, and you can order from your website. Now, do you have any distributors that carry them, like any of the local shops or anything?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah,
go ahead. That's Scott's lane there, so I'm gonna let him take that.
Oh,
well, yeah. Well, Heath and I work together on it, but yeah, I mean, we're in like most of the major distributors. Kenzie's, Lancaster, Xander's. As far as like your actual distributors, and then we have about 100 dealers across the U.S. We have places overseas that sell our broadheads. We actually have a distributor in Heath, I'm drawing a blank. Sweden.
Yep.
Sweden, that sells our broadheads. Our broadheads have been to New Zealand, killed a bunch of stuff in New Zealand, just all over the place. Obviously, we're still growing the market. We've been in meetings with bigger box stores. A lot of these guys, they don't tend to take you seriously till you're in year 5, because they want to know if they start doing business with you that you're going to be in it for the long haul. So realistically, this year here is when a lot of things are really going to start taking off for us.
Yeah, this is a substantial year for our growth.
Yeah, it is. It is, and we're ready. We've got I've worked for a few different companies in the outdoor industry, and I can honestly say this is one of the most skilled, dedicated, hardworking, best group of guys that I've worked with. And it's pretty much a common goal, is just the success of Thorn Broadheads, and we're all very deeply committed to it, just because we love the product that much.
Yep, 100%. I can back him on that. It's a small, tight knit family, but more than that, we believe in what we're doing. It's not just another job to pay the bills. This is something that we adore. Hunting is our life at the core, and then archery, and leading to bow hunting. It's just what we are, and we've got a product that in our hearts and in our minds, we truly believe that it can be at the top and will be at the top sooner rather than later. And this year's our year to prove it. We've been this is our 5th year in business, like Scott was saying, and it's coming. We're getting out there. Our brand awareness has grown exponentially every year for the last 5 years, and it's just a matter of time before it's a household name. Absolutely. I mean, it's right up on us.
Yeah, it's getting there. So yeah, I know the big box stores, they have such large volume that they're going to need to get that, and probably until you've been in there about 5 years, you can't handle the volume.
Yeah.
And now you're getting to the point where you can handle the volume and get in places like that. But you find a good broadhead, you're going to find a source for it. Quit going to the big box stores, go to the pro shops. They're more likely going to be able to, if they don't stock it, they can say, okay, order them up and set up an account. And I've had to do that on some parts I need in for a bow. There was no dealer, so I talked to the one guy and he become a dealer so I can get the parts in for my bow. Yeah. That's what you could do at a small shop. It's like, okay, I need to set up accounts so I can get these parts in. Okay. you know, that's something else, just another market. And, you know, when you have, you know, after talking to you guys, you know, this, you know, I switched to mechanicals. I think this is the one I'd switch to because,
Yeah.
yeah, it just after talking to you guys, you know, it's, you know, I might just go ahead and switch, but yeah.
Well, I
Hey.
think, you know, I think in all sincerity and seriousness, I can say that anybody that's tried our broadheads, I've yet to have a person come back to me and say, you gave me bad advice.
Yeah.
You know, they're always like, man, these things are great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's so many out there. It's just getting people to try it. And once they do, it's like the light bulb moment. You know, they're like,
Yeah.
you know,
A little
really.
light bulb comes on over your head.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and you know, and that's the kind of stuff that we like.
Yep.
You know.
And when they see the product, you know, for a first time user, when they see the product and they see how it works, and you know they have questions or whatever, we've convinced them to try it. It's like, you know, like you're saying, the light bulb just goes off. It's like, well, duh, you know, that just makes perfect sense. You know, why has no one ever thought of that before? And then when it gets put to use, you know, you've got a lifetime customer, more than likely, you know.
Right.
So,
Well, and like me, I've got one bow for hunting because my broadheads don't fly the same as field tips. I have another bow to shoot that I shoot field tips out of, you know, like for 3Ds and target with it and whatnot.
Mhm.
Well, if you can't have two bows, can't afford two bows, how are you going to do one without having to, you know, you could switch sights, have here's my hunting sight, then pull the sight off and put another one for the other one. So they're sighted in for there. But now you're bolting sights on, taking them off, putting them back on. You know, every year you're doing it. And well, okay, if I want to practice, you put the sight on, you get done practicing, so I'm going to practice tomorrow, and you don't make it. Well, the next day you're going hunting, you have your don't have your hunting sight on because it's at home. So, you know, that's just all kind of logistic stuff that, you know, if you don't have two bows, one set up for specific purposes, yeah, going to mechanical like this, that seems like that would be, you know, kind of a no brainer. You got one bow, shoot something, you can shoot them the same.
Yep. And if you like fixed blade, I can tell you, if you put that crown on, you absolutely
be careful with it.
Yeah, be careful. They're super sharp.
And lots of blades.
Lots of blades. I tell everybody, once it gets a hold of you, it don't let go, man. You're just
right.
cut. I mean, you are cut. But I think you would be very impressed with the accuracy and the performance. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I bought a set of mechanicals one time to shoot with my bow I use for, you know, field tips, because I needed to make a string for the other bow, and I didn't have it done. It's like, okay, I'm just going to get us on mechanicals so I can go out and hunt, and then ended up not using them anyway. And
yeah,
I finally got string made for my bow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that makes bow strings and everything else is like, okay, my hunting bow was down for a couple of years because I just didn't get to it, you know.
Right. Hey, it happens, man. It happens.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I don't have any arrows. I got 3 arrows left to hunt with, and then you go out and you shoot those 3 arrows, and you still have deer coming by. And still got tags left. You know, it's like, I ain't got no more arrows. But that's what I do is I make arrows.
Yep, there you go. There you go.
So yeah. I'd say what kind of parting thoughts do you have? Scott, let's go with you first.
I just say that if if folks are looking to do a broadhead switch for this year, if you have more questions, reach out to one of us. Anybody would be happy to talk with you and give them a try. I wholeheartedly believe that they will be impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you'd be supporting a very good company.
And what are your parting thoughts?
I can attest to Scott. I can pretty much second that. It's, I hope that with this podcast, it's brought about a good awareness of who we are, what we are, and, brought even further awareness to the product. And, for those that are on the edge of that fixed blade mechanical, that fence that you're riding, you know, if you're going to try one, try ours. You know, it's a product that we wholeheartedly stand behind, you know, and if there is a problem, you know, God forbid, you know, we're here to back it up. We're here to either explain something. No, we can't. If, you know, if you shoot a buck of a lifetime and something was to happen, you know, we can't fix that. I mean, that's in the past, but we'll be there. You know, we'll be there to talk you through things. You know, we'll be there before you buy them if you got questions. You know, so with all that being said, we just hope that this is enough to bring a positive outlook on what we are and then what we have.
But just be confident in your equipment and know it's going to work, and just go have fun.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys for being on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of information on there, and it's been, you know, kind of an eye-opening on mechanicals and, you know, some of the advantages. And I knew some of the advantages and disadvantages, and we kind of talked through those. And I think it's you know, good information. You know, I know everybody in the group is gonna and everybody sees this or watches it or listens to it or watches it is going to get some good information.
Yeah. Well, Roy, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing your success stories this year with them.
Yeah.
Maybe we've gained a new customer.
Yeah. I'm going to have to get a set of them. so I can try them out.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. All right.
Stop shooting my muzzies and shoot these instead.
Hey, muzzies worked for a lot of years, but you know,
they're tough. You know, they were recommended to me by the first set of broadheads I bought, and I've used them ever since. And you know, they say bad to the bone, and I've shattered bones with them. And like story is, I stuck one in concrete block, and I still use the broadhead, but concrete blocks aren't like rocks.
Right.
A rock or a steel plate would have done it in a little bit, but
Sure. Okay.
Well, my name is Roy Canterbury, host today on Arch Talk 101 with the great guys from Thorn Broadheads, and we'll see you next week. Make sure you tune in. The podcast comes out twice a week, Mondays and Fridays for the podcast, and on the YouTube channel on Tuesdays and Saturdays. So stay tuned for the next one. We'll have an exciting call next time.